Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. A powerful earthquake shook the northern foothills of the Himalayas near what Tibet considers its holiest city on Tuesday morning. It caused widespread damage and loss of life. No more suspense. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has officially announced his resignation. Speaking in Ottawa, he shared that he will step down after his party selects a new leader.
But I have always been driven by my love for Canada, by my desire to serve Canadians, and by what is in the best interests of Canadians. And Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election. And it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
So what's up next? And the news starts now. A powerful earthquake shook the northern foothills of the Himalayas near what Tibet considers its holiest city on Tuesday morning. It caused widespread damage and loss of life. A strong earthquake has shaken Tibet, leaving at least 53 people dead and injuring dozens more. And rescuers are racing against time, searching through rubble for survivors as aftershocks continue to rattle the region. The quake struck about 75 kilometers northeast of Mount Everest near Shigatse, which Tibetans consider their holy city. Tibet's Shigatse region is home to 800,000 people, with reports of aftershocks rattling villages. The impact was felt beyond China, reaching Nepal's capital Kathmandu and even parts of India. The U.S. Geological Survey recorded it as a magnitude 7.1 quake, relatively shallow at just 10 kilometers deep, adding to the intensity of the shaking. With dozens still trapped, rescuers are working around the clock, hoping to find more survivors. Canada's Liberal Party has hung out the Help Wanted sign following Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's announcement that he is resigning. Now, Trudeau said he will stay on in the top job until the party chooses a replacement. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
And that political infighting prompted Trudeau's decision to step aside. Parliament has also been suspended until March 24th to give the Liberals time to find a new leader. Trudeau has been under heavy pressure from party members amid polls that show the Liberals would be trounced in the next election.
As you all know, I am a fighter, and I am not someone who backs away from a fight, particularly when a fight is as important as this one is. But I have always been driven by my love for Canada, by my desire to serve Canadians, and by what is in the best interests of Canadians.
The new leader will immediately become Prime Minister and lead the party into the next election, and that must be held before October 20th of this year. But after Parliament resumes, opposition parties could topple the government with a non-confidence vote, and that would mean an election could be called as early as May. Whether a new face in the Liberals' front office will improve party fortunes is an open question. Public policy professor Kathy Brock says there are several reasons for Trudeau's plummeting popularity.
One reason is just his government is approaching the 10-year mark, and it's actually at the 9-year mark. And that's when people start to get tired of the government. They do want to see a change. But on top of that, it was felt that he wasn't sensitive to concerns that the average person felt. So the cost of food, inflation, the cost of gas, the problems with the border, crime going up in cities.
Trudeau's resignation, his eventual successor, and a possible early election couldn't come at a worse time, with Donald Trump threatening to impose 25% tariffs on Canadian goods the day he moves back into the White House. Political leaders and business groups are worried. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says Trudeau has to focus 100% on the issue of tariffs for the next month or two.
We have 14 days left before elect President Trump gets inaugurated. And we need to focus to make sure these tariffs don't move forward. And if they do move forward, we need to make sure that the federal government has a strong plan.
In Western Canada, Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says with the Liberal leadership in flux, it will be up to provincial leaders to make the case to the Americans. And she says that's why she'll be attending Trump's inauguration.
I'll be staying there for 4 or 5 days. I hope to be able to put forward the case that I made today about how we are the Americans' best friend and trading partner. We can provide the resources that they need to be successful, and that we are also their biggest consumer.
Trump reacted to Trudeau's announcement by repeating earlier comments that Canada would benefit from becoming the 51st U.S. state. But that suggestion is even less popular in Canada than the outgoing Prime Minister. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
Now, joining us now is Thomas I. Likeness. Thomas, President-elect Donald Trump has recently suggested that Canada could become part of the United States, the 51st state of the U.S. How have people reacted to this idea, especially in terms of national identity and relations between the two countries?
You know, Elma, every time Trump suggests that our country should become the 51st American state, he just embarrasses himself with how little he knows about Canadians or Canada. There's absolutely no appetite up here for the two countries to merge. No one here wants to lose the social safety nets that we have, and that includes things like universal free health care. And we're not interested in looser gun laws so that we can enjoy the chaos of mass shootings on a daily basis. And politically, we don't want to endure 2-year political campaigns. You know, election campaigns up here are just 28 days. That's only 4 weeks. We're a sovereign country. We're also an ally of the United States, but that doesn't mean we want to become part of the U.S. Joining the U.S. is a non-starter here and just delusional thinking on Trump's part. Elma?
Okay, Thomas, as Justin Trudeau's tenure as Prime Minister comes to an end, what kind of legacy do you think he will leave behind?
Well, he'll certainly be viewed, Elma, as one of the more progressive leaders in the world. Public policy professor Kathy Brock describes him as being a terrific communicator. She says, Trump has made a lot of promises, but his delivery has been weak. My own observation, Trump had a lot of charisma. He campaigned on style. But what he seemed to lack was the substance. Lots of sizzle, no steak. There just didn't seem to be a lot of depth to him. It's unlikely he'll be remembered as one of Canada's strongest prime ministers, but he will be remembered as someone who was committed to moving Canada forward in this century. Elma?
Thank you, Thomas. We'll be watching out for your updates. No more suspense. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has officially announced his resignation. Speaking in Ottawa, he shared that he will step down after his party selects a new leader. But don't expect him to leave immediately. Trudeau plans to stay on until the leadership process is complete, which could take a few months. Now, in his speech, he acknowledged the internal struggles within his party, admitting that if he's constantly fighting those battles, he can't be the best candidate for the upcoming election. So, what's up next?
Canada's Justin Trudeau said he would step down as Prime Minister in the coming months after nearly a decade in power, bowing to pressure as polls showed his party would be crushed in the next election.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. But I have always been driven by my love for Canada, by my desire to serve Canadians, and by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election. And it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
But what happens now? Trudeau said he would stay on both as prime minister and Liberal leader until the party picks a new one to take it into the next election. In Canada, unlike the process in other countries, party leaders are chosen by special leadership conventions that can take months to organize. The next federal election in Canada must take place before the end of October. Trudeau also announced on Monday he prorogued or suspended Parliament until March 24th. This means opposition parties who had planned to bring down his minority government as soon as they could will now have to wait until sometime in May. If all the opposition parties vote together on a non-confidence motion, the Liberals will be defeated and a new election called. If the Liberals are still in power by Parliament's scheduled summer break on June 20th, an election would be held as scheduled. The Liberals could also be brought down over the annual budget, most likely to come in April. When Trudeau took over the leadership in 2013, the contest lasted 5 months. A nightmare scenario for the Liberals is that the party takes so long to choose a new leader that Trudeau will still be in charge when the next election is called. That means it's likely the party will announce a shortened contest designed to get the next leader in office as soon as possible. Former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland and Mark Carney, former Governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, could run to replace Trudeau alongside a number of current cabinet ministers. Polls strongly indicate that the Liberals will lose the election, no matter who the leader is.
And now to the Middle East, where Iran's foreign minister has issued a sharp warning to Israel, promising retaliation against any future attacks, while cautioning that continued Israeli aggression could ignite a broader regional conflict. Take a look. He emphasized Iran's commitment to diplomacy, consulting with allies, including China.
We are fully prepared for the possibility of further attacks by Israel. I hope Israel will refrain from taking such reckless actions, as it could lead to a large-scale war. Of course, we will continue to pursue a diplomatic approach, stay in contact with regional countries, and consult with friendly nations like China. We believe that reason will ultimately prevail and prevent actions that could have serious consequences.
His remarks come amid growing fears of escalation as Israel faces recurring missile attacks from Yemen's Houthi rebels, who are widely believed to be supported by Iran. This tension follows a year of intense clashes. On October 1st last year, Iran fired 200 ballistic missiles at Israel, most of which were intercepted. Israel retaliated weeks later by targeting Iranian military sites. Meanwhile, a disturbing video released by Hamas has highlighted the human impact of the ongoing conflict in Gaza. Now take a look at this footage featuring a 19-year-old Israeli soldier abducted during Hamas's deadly October 7th attack. In this video, she pleads for her release, expressing her youth and how her life has been shattered. Her family, distraught by her distress, publicly urged Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to act swiftly.
עם ישראל היקר, קיבלנו היום אות חיים מלירי. סרטון שלנו, קשה לראות. זאת לא לירי שאנחנו מכירים. היום דיבר איתנו ראש הממשלה, נשיא המדינה, הרמטכ"ל, שר הביטחון, ואמרנו לו שיעשו עסקה, זה הזמן. יש את לירי ועוד 99 חטופים שצריכים לבוא הביתה במהרה.
אנחנו דרשנו מראש הממשלה ומשר הביטחון שלא יחזרו, שצוות המשא ומתן לא יחזור בלי הסכם. הבנו מדבריהם שהם נכונים ומוכנים לעשות הסכם ולהחזיר את כל החטופות והחטופים הביתה. אני רוצה להגיד ללירי שאם היא רואה את זה, שלירי, אנחנו נלחמים עלייך ואנחנו לא מוותרים עלייך, ואת חוזרת הביתה בחיים, את חוזרת. נכון שקשה שם ונכון שאת סובלת, אבל את חוזרת הביתה בחיים. אמא מבטיחה לך, אמא ואבא מבטיחים לך, ואנחנו מקיימים הבטחות, וזה יקרה עוד מעט, בעזרת השם זה יקרה עוד מעט, תאמיני בזה, אנחנו לא מוותרים. אל תוותרי גם את שם, תמשיכי להילחם ולשרוד. את חזקה ואת מסוגלת, אנחנו פה נלחמים עלייך. אני אוהבת אותך כל כך, ומתגעגעת מאוד, ומחכה כבר לחיבוק איתך.
Hamas claims to have offered Israel a list of 34 hostages for release in a potential ceasefire deal. But Netanyahu's office has denied receiving such a proposal, adding to the frustration. Negotiations mediated by Qatar, Egypt, and the U.S. have stalled, even as Netanyahu has allowed Israeli negotiators to rejoin the talks. Critics accuse him of stalling under domestic pressure. Amid a standoff, one family member of a hostage pleaded directly.
Like every Saturday evening, we come to the rally to call for our loved ones who are still in captivity. My father, Gadi Moses, is still there 456 days. We got to the movie for Liri Elbag, and as much as I'm happy for the family to see her alive, it's very concerning to see her status and not knowing about all the others. So we really hope that the delegation that went to the conversation will get to some agreement and we'll see all our loved ones as soon as possible.
As indirect talks in Qatar reportedly resume, the region remains on edge. Will diplomacy prevail, or will the tension spiral into an even greater crisis? It's a new era for traffic management in New York City. The nation's first ever congestion pricing plan is now in effect, promising to cut traffic and fund mass transit. But not everybody's on board.
Congestion pricing, and proof of how historic this is, at midnight, not only was New York One leading with this story, but the BBC World Service led with the story that New York was the first city in the United States to adopt a congestion pricing scheme. So we're very proud of that.
While the system has only just begun, it's already widespread.
The system has been in operation since midnight. 1,400 cameras, over 110 detection points, separate detection points on the borders of the congestion zone and within the zones. There are well over 800 signs, and there are 400 lanes of traffic that are within the zone. And drivers are going to start to see the toll charges appearing on their Easy Pass bills in a few days.
Taxi passengers will also feel the impact with an additional 75-cent charge per trip.
Roughly 700,000 vehicles enter Manhattan Central Business District every day. And so that's kind of the pool of drivers that could be affected by congestion pricing. By and large, those drivers are higher income than transit users, and about 6 million people ride the transit system every day in New York. So there's kind of an equity argument about what the impacts of the program will be.
All these people making those decisions, they don't live in the city. They even don't know what's going on here. People who ride the survey have to pay more if they have to. Why people have to pay more when they drive, their car?
It affects everybody because we have to come in every day. We take the bridge every day, which charges $9, and half my workers come the same thing. It affects everybody. And it really is too much for everyone.
A lot of people who work in downtown or some other places, they have to, or some people who travel from Connecticut or Staten Island or any Pennsylvania, so they had to take a car to come, and now they have to pay for 5 days extra money, those working days. I think it's not fair. Like, I could understand if you're charging $2 or something, but $9 is a lot.
But Lieber insists the project's main focus is reducing traffic and saving time for consumers.
If you do drive, if you have to drive, we want you to spend less time stuck in traffic. Your time is worth real money, and that's why the business community has supported this so much, because time wasted in traffic is a huge drag on our economy. So we want to see speeds pick up, especially for buses now moving at under 5 miles an hour in mid.
However, the plan has its critics. President-elect Donald Trump has voiced strong opposition, claiming it could disadvantage New York against other cities and states. He may try to repeal the toll program once he takes office on January 20.
President Trump and others who are incoming into the administration have discussed this congestion fee as a challenge to business operations in particular. In fact, the experience that we've seen in places like London and Stockholm is that there was no net effect to business operations. And in fact, customers continued to visit businesses within the zone, and deliveries arrived on time and were more reliable, and workers had more reliable schedules because of this new program in place.
Louisiana health officials have confirmed the first human death from bird flu in the United States. The patient, who was over 65 with underlying health conditions, contracted the virus after exposure to backyard chickens and wild birds.
It is cold and flu season, so we do have a lot of people that are sick right now with these respiratory viruses. And this one's a little different because this person was infected with a strain of influenza that was spread from wild birds to their domestic birds and then to themselves. And so in a way, the risk is pretty localized, although it does seem to be growing across the US. So I guess what that means for Louisiana is the risk to the general public is still low. This is the only case that's been identified in people. This is not a strain of influenza that can spread between people, luckily.
The case comes amid an ongoing bird flu outbreak that has affected both wild and domestic birds across the country. Since 2022, nearly 130 million birds have been impacted, along with hundreds of dairy herds.
And the majority of people that are infected with seasonal flus. And some of those are directly from person to person. Some of those are from wild animals, eventually to people, and then spreading through the human population. And those are always much more of a concern because there's so many people that are infected on an annual basis. And like our case here, if you're older, you're immunocompromised, you have underlying health conditions, that puts you at a much greater risk of severe mortality, being hospitalized, and potentially dying from the infection.
Health experts emphasize the importance of prevention, especially during this season.
It's still a good time to get your flu shot. Flu shot's going to prevent not avian influenza, but seasonal influenza and the possibility of being co-infected with those viruses, which is really what we're more concerned in the long run, that this bird flu that we have spreading across the US right now has some kind of mutation or a reassortment event, which makes it more transmissible between people, which is what we have not seen yet.
State health officials have issued specific guidance for the public.
You know, what the state recommended and what we would recommend is that people be careful about sick and dead animals and their droppings and contact with them, and not eating undercooked poultry or eggs or milk, consuming milk that hasn't been pasteurized.
And for those concerned about backyard bird feeders, experts offer specific advice.
We do have this happening all the time. We do have migratory birds moving from different parts of the country. We sometimes have them infected with bird flu viruses, and they can spread to local birds or to backyard flocks. And I believe most recommendations are, keep those bird feeders up to feed the birds in your neighborhood. But if you have a backyard flock, try and keep that distance from the flock to not encourage that interaction between your birds that you are either growing because of agriculture or your backyard poultry and those wild birds that are passing through.
Globally, the World Health Organization reports that of the more than 950 human cases of bird flu recorded, approximately half have resulted in death. Tonight, France confirms its first case of a new Mpox variant, raising concerns across Europe. French health officials say the patient, a woman in the northwestern region of Brittany, contracted the virus despite not traveling to Central Africa, where the variant originated. However, she had been in contact with 2 people who recently returned from the region. The case was discovered at a hospital in Rennes, and health authorities are now racing to trace all potential contacts while investigating the source of the infection. This new strain, known as Clade 1b, is the same variant that prompted the World Health Organization to declare a global health emergency last August. It has already appeared in other European nations, with both Germany and Britain reporting their first cases in October. French health officials continue to monitor the situation closely as they work to prevent further spread of this new variant. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. Nvidia, now the world's second most valuable tech company, unveiled its vision for the future at CES 2025, with CEO Jensen Huang showcasing breakthrough developments in gaming, artificial intelligence, and robotics.
Here it is, our brand new GeForce RTX 50 series Blackwell architecture. The GPU is just a beast. 92 billion transistors, 4,000 TOPS, 4 petaflops of AI, 3 times higher than the last generation Ada. And we need all of it to generate those pixels that I showed you.
The new gaming chips promises movie-quality graphics with revolutionary AI technology for creating realistic human faces and textures.
So can you imagine? You get this incredible graphics card here, Blackwell. We're going to shrink it and put it in there. Does that make any sense? Well, you can't do that without artificial intelligence. And the reason for that is because we're generating most of the pixels using our tensor cores. So we ray trace only the pixels we need, and we generate using artificial intelligence all of the other pixels we have. As a result, the energy efficiency is just off the charts.
In the automotive sector, Nvidia announced a partnership with Toyota while highlighting the company's role in the autonomous vehicle revolution.
The AV revolution has arrived. After so many years, with Waymo's success and Tesla's success, it is very, very clear autonomous vehicles has finally arrived. Well, our offering to this industry is the 3 computers: the training systems to train the AIs, the simulation systems, and the synthetic data generation systems, Omniverse and now Cosmos, and also the computer that's inside the car. Each car company might work with us in a different way, use 1 or 2 or 3 of the computers. We're working with just about every major car company around the world.
Perhaps most striking was Wang's prediction about the future of robotics.
My friends, the ChatGPT moment for general robotics is just around the corner. And in fact, all of the enabling technologies that I've been talking about is going to make it possible for us in the next several years to see very rapid breakthroughs, surprising breakthroughs in general robotics.
The company also unveiled a new AI supercomputer aimed at transforming how we work.
This is now the new way of doing computing. This is the new way of doing software. Every software engineer, every creative artist, everybody who uses computers today as a tool will need an AI supercomputer. And so I just wish that DGX-1 was smaller. And imagine, ladies and gentlemen, this is Nvidia's latest AI supercomputer. And it's finally called Project Digits right now. Imagine this is what it looks like. You know, who doesn't want one of those? And if you use PC, Mac, anything.
And finally, NASA astronaut Don Petit captured the northern lights from space in footage released on Sunday. Petit was above eastern Canada when he orbited over the northern lights, also referred to as Aurora Borealis. And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.